Hello, my good friends. How are you today? May God bless you all. I will not introduce anything. You guys watch the video and feel it, then let's evaluate together. The warehouse was a furnace, a beast of fire and smoke that roared in the Chicago night. Amara Brooks stood frozen, her lungs burning as black clouds coiled around her like serpents. The heat pressed against her skin, singeing the edges of her curly hair, which glowed copper under the flickering flames. Somewhere in the haze, Caleb Ward was tied to a chair, blood seeping from a gash on his shoulder, his hazel eyes locked on her through the chaos. Beside him, Vanessa Cole, her auburn hair matted with soot, coughed and pleaded, her voice shrill. "Caleb, save me! You owe me!" A crackling voice echoed from a speaker bolted to the wall, cold and mechanical. "Choose, Caleb. One lives, one dies. Tick-tock." Amara's heart pounded, not just from the fire, but from the weight of Caleb's gaze. In that moment, she saw everything. The nights they'd spent laughing over burnt cornbread, the way his hand felt steadying her in the rain, the whispered promises that had turned a fake marriage into something real. Her knees trembled, but she stood tall, her brown eyes fierce despite the tears stinging them. She wasn't just Amara Brooks, the intern scraping by in Bronzeville. She was the woman who'd fought for her place, who'd loved Caleb even when she swore she wouldn't. Caleb strained against the ropes, his jaw clenched. Blood dripped onto the concrete, but he didn't flinch. With a guttural yell, he snapped the cords binding him, staggering to his feet. Vanessa screamed his name, but he didn't look at her. He ran to Amara, his hands cupping her face, his breath ragged. "You," he said, voice hoarse. "It's always been you." He pulled her toward the exit, the flames licking at their heels. Amara stumbled, her sneakers slipping on the slick floor, but Caleb's arm around her waist kept her upright. Behind them, Vanessa's cries grew fainter. "Caleb, don't leave me," she sobbed. He hesitated just for a second, then shouted over his shoulder, "Follow us, Vanessa! Move!" They burst into the cool night air, collapsing onto the gravel as sirens wailed in the distance. Firefighters stormed past, dragging Vanessa out just before the warehouse roof caved in with a thunderous crash. Amara clung to Caleb, her fingers digging into his torn shirt, feeling his heartbeat under her palm. He was alive. They were alive. But as she looked into his eyes, questions burned hotter than the fire. Why had he chosen her? What did Vanessa mean, "You owe me"? And what secrets were buried in the ashes of that warehouse? 3 months earlier, Amara Brooks was just trying to keep her head above water. At 24, she was an intern at Brooks Biotech, a pharmaceutical company in Chicago's Loop, crunching data for pennies while living with her grandmother, Loretta, in a cramped Bronzeville apartment. The place smelled of collard greens and history, with faded photos of Loretta marching for civil rights pinned to the walls. Amara loved it, but the hospital bills piling up for Loretta's heart condition were a noose around her neck. Every night, she'd stare at the ceiling, her dreams of developing affordable drugs for communities like hers feeling further out of reach. That's when Naya, her best friend since high school, texted her with a wild idea. "Girl, you need cash, right? There's this freelance app gig, $5,000 to crash a blind date and scare the guy off. Easy money." Amara laughed, thinking it was a joke, but Nia was dead serious. "It's for this rich dude who got roped into a setup. Just show up looking like a hot mess and act unhinged. You in?" Amara hesitated. $5,000 could cover Loretta's meds for months. "Fine," she typed back, "but if I end up on some true crime podcast, you're bailing me out." That evening, she rummaged through her closet, pulling out a ratty hoodie with a mustard stain, mismatched socks, and scuffed sneakers. She tied her curls into a sloppy bun, skipped makeup, and checked the mirror. Perfect. She looked like she'd just rolled out of a dumpster. Grinning, she headed to the Blue Note, a jazz club in Bronzeville where the date was set. The place was alive with the hum of a saxophone, the clink of glasses, and the warm glow of string lights. Couples swayed to the music, and the air smelled of bourbon and fried okra. Amara spotted her target across the room, Caleb Ward, late 20s, leaning against the bar with an easy confidence. He wasn't what she'd expected. No flashy watch, no smug grin. Just a guy in a tailored blazer, dark hair falling into his eyes, sipping a whiskey like he belonged. His sharp jaw and broad shoulders didn't hurt either. For a second, Amara forgot her mission, then shook it off. Focus, girl. Get in, get weird, get paid. She plopped into the seat across from him, slouching like she owned the place. Yo, I'm Amara, she said, loud enough to turn heads. Just so you know, I'm kinda wild. Got 10 cats at home. Love blasting death metal at 3 a.m. You cool with that? Caleb raised an eyebrow, his lips twitching like he was fighting a smile. Most guys would have bolted, but he leaned forward, resting his chin on his hand. 10 cats, huh? That's a lot of litter boxes. You got a favorite? Amara blinked. He's supposed to run, not play along. She doubled down, grinning like a maniac. Oh yeah, my fave's Mr. Whiskers. He pukes on everything, and I'm not big on cleaning, so my place is basically a biohazard. You'd be chill living in that, right? Caleb chuckled, a low, warm sound that sent a shiver through her. I've survived worse, he said, his eyes locking on hers. Sounds like you're a free spirit. I can work with that. What the hell? Amara's plan was crumbling. She tossed out more absurdity. Look, I'm a mess. Broke, no fancy degree, and I'd probably ditch you every weekend to hit dive bars. You'd be better off bailing now. He tilted his head, unfazed. Nah, I'm good, you're honest. That's rare. Then, to her shock, he leaned across the table, his voice dropping. How about we skip the small talk and go big? Marry me. The jazz band hit a sour note, or maybe that was just Amara's brain short-circuiting. Say what now? She sputtered, her soda nearly spilling. Caleb smiled, calm as ever. I'm serious. Not for real, just a contract. I need someone to play my wife to dodge a family mess. You need money, right? I'll pay you 10 grand a month to pull it off. Amara's mind raced. 10,000 a month could change everything. Loretta's bills, her research, her life. But this guy was either nuts or hiding something. She searched his face for a catch, but all she saw was sincerity, or at least a damn good act. This better not be a scam, she said, her voice shaky. He pulled a napkin from the bar, scribbled a quick agreement, and slid it over. Sign here. No funny business, I promise. Her hand trembled as she scratched her name, the ink smudging. Caleb tucked the napkin into his pocket, stood, and offered his hand. Deal's done, wife. Let's get out of here. She took his hand, dazed, her palm tingling against his. They stepped into the Chicago night, the neon signs of Bronzeville buzzing around them. Amara stole a glance at Caleb, his profile sharp under the streetlights. Who was this guy really? She had no idea she'd just signed up for more than a paycheck. Caleb Ward wasn't just some corporate suit. He was the CEO of Ward Biotech, a billionaire hiding in plain sight, and her life was about to flip upside down. The next week, Amara stood in the doorway of Caleb's penthouse in the Loop, clutching a duffel bag like it was a lifeline. The place was all glass and steel, with a view of Lake Michigan that screamed money. It was a far cry from Loretta's apartment, where the couch sagged and the fridge hummed like a dying engine. Caleb greeted her with a casual smile, tossing her a key. Welcome home, Amara, he said, his voice smooth as the whiskey from the jazz club. She nodded, unsure how to feel about this stranger who was now her husband. The first few days were awkward as hell. Amara stuck to her corner of the penthouse, a guest room with a bed bigger than her old bedroom. Caleb didn't push, just went about his routine, out early, back late, dodging her questions about his job. She figured he was some mid-level exec, maybe in sales, based on his vague answers. But little things started to shift her perspective. One morning, she woke to the smell of coffee and found a warm biscuit on the kitchen counter, a note scrawled in Caleb's messy handwriting. For you. Have a good day at work. She stared at it, confused. Nobody had done something like that since her mom, Grace, died. Another day, when Loretta called about a busted toaster, Caleb showed up in Bronzeville with a toolbox, rolling up his sleeves to fix it while Amara watched, stunned. You don't have to do this, she said, leaning against the counter as he fiddled with wires. He shrugged, a bead of sweat rolling down his temple. I like fixing things. Besides, Loretta's family now, right? Amara's chest tightened. Family. The word hit her hard, stirring memories of her mom's laughter, her dad's absence. She pushed it down, but Caleb's kindness was chipping away at her walls. That night, back at the penthouse, they sat on the couch, a rare moment of quiet. She couldn't hold back her curiosity anymore. Why are you so nice to me? This is just a contract, isn't it? Caleb set down his water, his hazel eyes meeting hers. Maybe it started that way, he said softly. But I like being around you, Amara. You're real. Not many people are. Her breath caught. She hadn't expected that. Hesitant, she opened up, the words spilling out before she could stop them. My dad, Malcolm, bailed when I was 6. Chased money, left my mom to fall apart. She got sick, depression, then worse. I hate people like him, people who think wealth fixes everything. Caleb listened, his face unreadable, but his silence safe. I'm sorry you went through that, he said finally. Not everyone with money's like him, though. She scoffed, unconvinced, but his words lingered. As they sat there, the city lights sparkling beyond the windows, Amara felt something shift. This wasn't just a deal anymore. It was dangerous, messy, and maybe, just maybe, worth it. So, what did you think of that warehouse fire? Did your heart race when Caleb chose Amara? Or were you hooked by their first meeting at the jazz club? Drop a comment below and let me know what moment got you. If you're loving this roller coaster of a love story, hit that subscribe button to catch the next part. Amara and Caleb's journey is just heating up, and trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming. Thanks for reading, and I'll see you in the next one. Amara Brooks stood in the guest room of Caleb Ward's penthouse, staring at the skyline of Chicago's Loop through floor-to-ceiling windows. The city glittered like a promise, but it felt like a lie. She'd been here a week, playing the role of Caleb's fake wife, and every polished surface of this place, the marble counters, the sleek leather couch, the fridge that dispensed sparkling water, reminded her she didn't belong. Back in Bronzeville, Loretta's apartment creaked with history, smelled of fried okra and love. Here, it was all cold edges and silence, except for the hum of Caleb's presence, which was starting to feel less like a contract and more like a complication. She tossed her duffel bag onto the bed, the same one she'd brought from home, refusing to unpack fully. This isn't permanent, she told herself. 10 grand a month was a lifeline for Loretta's hospital bills, but Amara wasn't about to get cozy in a world that screamed money. Money had torn her family apart. Her dad, Malcolm, chasing it, leaving her mom, Grace, to drown in depression until she was gone. Amara's jaw tightened at the memory. Caleb wasn't like that. Not exactly, but his easy charm and random acts of kindness, like the biscuit he'd left her yesterday, were messing with her head. Her phone buzzed, pulling her back. A text from Nia. How's life with Mr. Jazz Club? Spill the tea. Amara smirked, typing back. He's too nice. It's weird. Also, this place is like a spaceship. Nia's reply was instant. Nice is good, girl. Don't sabotage this. You need that cash. Amara sighed, tossing the phone onto the bed. Nia was right, but nice was dangerous. Nice made her want to trust Caleb, and trust was a trap. She grabbed her lab coat and headed out for Brooks Biotech, determined to keep her walls up. The office was a hive of fluorescent lights and whispered gossip. Amara's desk, tucked in a corner, was buried under spreadsheets and coffee cups. She was analyzing compounds for a new diabetes drug, work she loved but barely got credit for. Today, though, the air felt heavier. Her co-worker, Tanya, leaned over, her voice low. "Heard you're shacking up with some hotshot. That why you're always sneaking out early?" Amara's stomach twisted. "I'm not sneaking anywhere," she said, keeping her eyes on her screen. "Just handling my business." Tanya raised an eyebrow. "Sure, girl. But people talk. Say you're climbing the ladder on your back, not your brain." The words stung like a slap. Amara gripped her pen, her knuckles whitening. She'd fought tooth and nail for this internship, staying up late to study while Loretta prayed over her. The idea that her colleagues, mostly white, mostly privileged, thought she was sleeping her way up made her blood boil. She wanted to snap back, but she swallowed it. No use giving them more ammo. That evening, she returned to the penthouse, her mood sour. Caleb was in the kitchen, chopping onions with a focus that didn't match his usual easy grin. The air smelled of butter and spices, like Loretta's gumbo. "Rough day?" he asked, not looking up. "You could say that," Amara muttered, dropping her bag. She hesitated, then blurted, "People at work think I'm only there because of you. They don't even know about this fake marriage crap, but they're already judging." Caleb set the knife down, his hazel eyes meeting hers. "That's on them, not you. You're damn good at your job. I've seen your notes. Those compound analyses. Most PhDs couldn't touch that." She blinked, caught off guard. "You've seen my work?" He shrugged, a half smile tugging at his lips. "You leave your laptop open. Hard not to notice." Amara's cheeks warmed. She wasn't used to compliments, especially not from someone who looked like Caleb. Sharp jaw, broad shoulders, and that quiet intensity that made her pulse skip. She turned away, pretending to study the fridge. "Whatever. Just don't go thinking you know me." He laughed, soft and warm. "Not yet. But I'm working on it." The moment hung between them, charged like the air before a storm. Amara's fingers brushed the counter, and she noticed a smudge of flour on Caleb's sleeve. Without thinking, she reached out to wipe it, her hand grazing his arm. His muscles tensed under her touch, and their eyes locked. For a second, she forgot how to breathe. His gaze dropped to her lips, and she felt a pull, like gravity, urging her closer. Then the stove hissed, breaking the spell. Caleb stepped back, clearing his throat. "Dinner's almost ready. You like gumbo?" She nodded, her heart still racing. "Yeah. My grandma's recipe is the best, though." "Challenge accepted," he said, grinning. "Bet I can give Loretta a run for her money." Amara snorted, but the tension eased. As they ate, the gumbo surprisingly decent, she found herself laughing at his stories, about burning pancakes as a kid, about his dog that ate his homework and somehow got away with it. For the first time, the penthouse didn't feel so cold. The next day, Trouble walked in wearing designer heels. Amara was in the penthouse, reviewing lab data, when the doorbell chimed. Caleb opened it, and a woman swept in like she owned the place. Auburn hair, flawless makeup, and a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Caleb, darling," she said, hugging him tightly. "It's been too long." Amara's stomach twisted as Caleb returned the hug stiffly. "Vanessa," he said, stepping back. "What are you doing here?" Vanessa Cole barely glanced at Amara, her gaze fixed on Caleb. "I heard you got married. Thought I'd congratulate you." She pulled a worn leather bracelet from her purse, dangling it like a trophy. "And remind you of this, from when I saved your life, remember?" Amara's eyes narrowed. Caleb's expression shifted, a flicker of unease crossing his face. "The kidnapping," he murmured, taking the bracelet. "You kept this." Vanessa nodded, her voice soft but sharp. "Of course. I risked everything to get you out. And now you're with—" She finally looked at Amara, her smile dripping with disdain. "Her? Some stand-in who doesn't even know you?" Amara stood, her fists clenched. "I'm not a stand-in," she snapped. "I'm his wife." Vanessa laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "Wife, please. Caleb and I have history. You're just a phase." Caleb stepped between them, his jaw tight. "That's enough, Vanessa. Amara's not going anywhere." Vanessa's smile faltered, but she recovered, tossing her hair. "We'll see about that." She sauntered out, leaving the bracelet on the counter like a challenge. Amara stared at it, her mind racing. Kidnapping? Saved his life? Caleb hadn't mentioned any of this. She turned to him, her voice low. "What the hell was that about?" He rubbed his neck, avoiding her eyes. "It's old news. When I was a kid, I got grabbed. Long story. Vanessa was there, helped me get out. That's all." "That's all?" Amara's voice rose. "She's acting like she owns you, and you're just standing there letting her." "I'm not letting her do anything," Caleb said, his tone firm. "She's in the past, Amara. You're my present." His words should have reassured her, but they didn't. The bracelet sat there, a relic of a story she wasn't part of, and that word, present, felt temporary, like she was just a placeholder in his world of secrets and wealth. The next morning, Amara was at Brooks Biotech, trying to focus on her data, when her phone buzzed. It was Loretta, her voice shaky. "Baby, someone was sniffing around the apartment last night. Looked like they were watching the place." Amara's blood ran cold. "You okay? Did you call the cops?" "I'm fine, just spooked." "Cops came, but the guy was gone. You be careful, hear me?" Amara promised she would, but her gut churned. Was it a coincidence, or was something bigger going on? She pushed it aside, diving back into work, but the whispers around the office didn't help. Tanya and another colleague, Greg, were huddled nearby, their voices low, but not low enough. "She's living with that Ward guy, right? Bet he's pulling strings to keep her here." Amara's pen snapped in her hand. She stood, grabbing her coat. "I'm taking lunch," she said, not waiting for a response. She needed air, needed to clear her head. But as she stepped into the elevator, her phone pinged with an email notification, not hers, but Caleb's. His laptop was open on her desk from when he'd stopped by to drop off her forgotten badge. The subject line caught her eye. Ward Biotech Q3 report, CEO briefing. CEO? Amara's breath hitched. She clicked, her hands trembling. The email was addressed to Caleb Ward, CEO of Ward Biotech, detailing a multi-million-dollar deal. Her mind spun. Not a mid-level exec, not sales, a billionaire running one of the biggest pharmaceutical companies in the country, and he'd lied to her. She stormed back to the penthouse, her anger a living thing. Caleb was in the living room reading a report when she burst in. "You're the CEO of Ward Biotech?" she shouted, holding up her phone with the email still glowing. "You've been playing me this whole time, haven't you?" Caleb's face fell, panic flickering in his eyes. "Amara, I didn't lie. I just didn't tell you everything." "That's the same damn thing," she snapped. "You let me think you were some regular guy, but you're one of them, rich, powerful, pulling strings behind my back. Did you fund my research too? Is that why I got the grant?" He stood, his hands raised like he was calming a storm. "Yes, I funded it, but not because I'm controlling you. I saw your work, Amara. It's brilliant. I wanted to help." "Help?" She laughed, bitter. You don't get it. I don't want your charity. I don't want to owe you or anyone anything. You don't owe me, he said, stepping closer. This isn't about money. It's about you. I believe in you. She shook her head, tears stinging. I trusted you, Caleb, and you played me, just like my dad. His face crumpled like she'd hit him. I'm not him. I was going to tell you, I swear. I didn't want you to see me as some rich jerk. Then why hide it? She demanded. Why let me think? Because I'm falling for you, he blurted, his voice raw. And I was scared you'd run if you knew who I really am. The room went still. Amara's heart pounded, his words echoing in her chest. Falling for her? She wanted to believe it, but Vanessa's bracelet, the email, the whispers at work, they all screamed betrayal. She took a step back, her voice cold. I need space. Don't follow me. She grabbed her bag and left, the door slamming behind her. Outside, the Chicago wind bit at her face, but it couldn't cool the fire in her veins. She headed for Bronzeville, needing Loretta's warmth, needing home. But as she crossed a quiet street, a shadow moved in her peripheral vision, a figure in a dark jacket watching from the corner. Her pulse spiked. She quickened her pace, glancing back, but the figure was gone. Amara's hand tightened around her phone. Something was wrong. Vanessa's visit, the watcher at Loretta's, now this. Caleb's world was pulling her in, and it wasn't just her heart at stake. Someone was out there, and they were closing in. The rain came down in sheets, turning Chicago's streets into a mirror of neon and shadow. Amara Brooks sat in the passenger seat of Caleb Ward's car, her arms crossed, staring out the window as the wipers battled the storm. They were stuck in traffic on Lakeshore Drive, the city's skyline blurred through the glass. It had been 2 days since she'd stormed out of the penthouse, reeling from the discovery that Caleb was the CEO of Ward Biotech. She'd stayed at Loretta's, ignoring his texts, but when he showed up at Brooks Biotech that afternoon, offering to drive her home, she'd relented. Not because she forgave him, but because the shadow she'd seen following her still haunted her thoughts. You gonna talk to me, or just glare at the rain all night? Caleb asked, his voice low, careful. He gripped the steering wheel, his knuckles pale, a faint bruise on his jaw from where he'd bumped it fixing Loretta's toaster last week. Amara didn't look at him. What's there to say? You lied. I'm still processing. I didn't lie, he said, softer now. I just held back. I'm sorry, Amara. I thought I was protecting you. Protecting me? She turned, her brown eyes flashing. From what? Your bank account? Or the fact that you're calling the shots on my career without telling me? Caleb sighed, running a hand through his damp hair. It's not like that. Your research is yours. I just gave it a push because I know how good you are. You think I'd risk my company's money on someone I didn't believe in? His words hit her, stirring something she didn't want to feel. She looked away, her fingers twisting the hem of her hoodie. The car smelled of leather and Caleb's cologne, a warm, woodsy scent that made her head spin. Outside, thunder rumbled and the traffic crawled. They weren't going anywhere soon. Tell me something real, she said finally, her voice barely above the rain. No more secrets. Why'd you need this fake marriage? What's the deal with your family? Caleb's jaw tightened, but he nodded. My mom, Eleanor, she's intense, wants me settled, married to someone she picks. Vanessa was her choice. Always has been. I couldn't stomach it. Not after... He stopped, his eyes distant. Not after everything. The contract with you was my way out. But it's more than that now. Amara's heart skipped, but she pushed it down. More how? He turned to her, his gaze steady despite the storm. You're not just a way out, Amara. You're... You. You make me want to be better, not just some guy hiding behind a title. The air in the car felt heavy, charged. Amara's throat tightened. She wanted to stay mad, to hold on to her walls, but his honesty was cracking them. You don't know me, Caleb, she said, softer now. Not really. Then let me, he said, leaning closer. Tell me something real about you. She hesitated, the rain drumming a rhythm that matched her pulse. My mom, Grace. She was everything. A scientist like me, but she had this laugh that could light up a room. When my dad left, she fell apart. Depression took her, slow at first, then all at once. I was 12 when she died. I've been scared ever since. Scared of letting anyone in, because they always leave. Caleb's hand found hers, warm and steady. I'm not leaving, he said, his voice fierce. Not unless you tell me to. Her eyes stung, and before she could stop herself, she leaned into him. His arms wrapped around her, strong and safe, and for a moment, the world was just them, the rain, and the quiet hum of the car. Then his lips brushed her forehead, tentative, and she tilted her head up. Their mouths met, slow at first, then hungry, like they'd been starving for this. The kiss was fire, melting her doubts, leaving her breathless. His hand cupped her face, his thumb tracing her cheek, and she felt the world tilt. A horn blared, snapping them apart. The car behind them flashed its lights, and Caleb laughed, a little shaky. Guess we're holding up traffic. Amara's cheeks burned, but she smiled, something loosening in her chest. Yeah, well, don't get used to it, Ward. He grinned, pulling back onto the road. But as they drove, her mind replayed the kiss, the way his touch had felt like a promise. She wasn't ready to forgive him. Not fully, but she couldn't deny the pull between them. It was dangerous, and she was already in too deep. The next evening, Amara stood on a small stage at the Word, a poetry spot in Bronzeville. The room was packed, the air thick with the smell of coffee and anticipation. Exposed brick walls were lined with bookshelves, and a single spotlight lit her up. She'd been coming here since high school, spilling her heart through poems about her mom, her roots, her fight. Tonight, though, was different. Caleb was in the crowd, sitting near the back, his eyes fixed on her. She gripped the mic, her voice steady despite the butterflies. This one's called Roots, she said, then began. My mama was soil, rich and deep, growing dreams where pain tried to creep. In Bronzeville's heart, she taught me to stand, a black girl with fire, holding hope in her hand. The words poured out, raw and true, weaving her love for Grace, her pride in her heritage, her fear of losing herself. The crowd snapped their fingers, a soft rhythm of respect, and when she finished, applause erupted. Amara's eyes found Caleb's, and he was on his feet, clapping first, his smile brighter than the spotlight. Her heart swelled. For once, she didn't feel like an outsider. Afterward, he met her by the bar, a cup of chai in his hand. That was incredible, he said, handing her the drink. You're incredible. She rolled her eyes, but her smile betrayed her. Don't get all mushy on me, Ward. Too late, he said, his voice low, teasing. Their fingers brushed as she took the cup, and a spark shot through her. She was starting to like this feeling, and that scared her more than anything. The next day, trouble found her. Amara was leaving Brooks Biotech late, her bag slung over her shoulder, her mind still on Caleb's smile at the poetry slam. The parking garage was quiet, the fluorescent lights flickering. She'd parked in the far corner, a habit from when she couldn't afford closer spots. As she approached her beat-up Honda, footsteps echoed behind her. She turned, but no one was there. Her pulse quickened. Just your imagination, she told herself, but the shadow she'd seen last week lingered in her mind. She fumbled for her keys, the jangle loud in the silence. Then a hand grabbed her arm, yanking her back. She screamed, swinging her bag, but a second figure emerged, his face hidden by a ski mask. "Stay quiet," he growled, pinning her against the car. His breath reeked of cigarettes, and a glint of steel flashed. A knife. Panic surged, but Amara fought, kicking at his shin. "Get off me!" she yelled, her voice echoing. The first guy cursed, raising the knife, but before it could strike, a figure barreled into him. Caleb. His fist connected with the man's jaw, sending him sprawling. The second attacker lunged, the knife slashing Caleb's shoulder. Blood sprayed, staining his shirt, but Caleb didn't flinch. He tackled the guy, pinning him to the concrete with a roar. "Touch her again, and you're done." Amara scrambled to her feet, her hands shaking as she grabbed her phone, dialing 911. The first attacker staggered up, but Caleb's glare stopped him cold. "Run!" he spat, and the men bolted, disappearing into the shadows. Caleb slumped against the car, clutching his shoulder, blood seeping through his fingers. Amara dropped to her knees beside him, her hands trembling as she pressed her scarf against the wound. "Caleb, oh God, hold on," she said, her voice breaking. "Why are you even here?" "Saw your car," he panted, wincing. "Knew you were working late. Got a bad feeling." "You idiot," she choked out, tears spilling. "You could have died." He managed a weak smile, his hand finding hers. "Worth it, if you're safe." Sirens wailed and paramedics swarmed the garage. Amara clung to Caleb's hand as they loaded him onto a stretcher, her heart pounding. At the hospital, she sat by his bed, the sterile smell of antiseptic burning her nose. His shoulder was stitched, the doctors saying he'd be fine but needed rest. He slept, his face peaceful despite the bandage, and Amara watched him, her chest aching. She'd been so mad, so ready to push him away, but seeing him bleed for her changed everything. She loved him. The realization hit like a freight train, terrifying and undeniable. Her phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "Back off, or next time he won't walk away." Her blood ran cold. This wasn't random. Someone wanted her scared, and they knew about Caleb. She glanced at him, his chest rising and falling, and her resolve hardened. Whoever was behind this, they'd picked the wrong fight. The next morning, Amara was at Loretta's, sipping coffee while her grandmother stirred a pot of greens. Loretta's kitchen was a sanctuary, the walls papered with old recipes and photos of Amara's mom. "You look like you seen a ghost, baby," Loretta said, her voice warm but sharp. "What's going on with you and that boy?" Amara hesitated, then spilled everything. The attack, Caleb's secret, the text. Loretta listened, her eyes narrowing. "Sounds like trouble follows that man, but he ran into danger for you. That's not nothing." "I know," Amara said, her voice small. "But I'm scared, Grandma. What if I'm in over my head?" Loretta set the spoon down, her hands firm on Amara's shoulders. "You're Grace's daughter. Ain't no water too deep for you. But you gotta decide if he's worth the storm." Amara nodded, but her mind was elsewhere. She pulled out a box of her mom's old things, stuff she hadn't touched in years. Among the letters and photos was a faded notebook filled with Grace's handwriting. One page caught her eye, a poem about a boy lost and found, and a note scribbled in the margin. Helped him escape. Never told anyone. Amara's breath caught. Escape. Could it be Caleb? She called Malcolm, her dad, who'd reached out last week, claiming he wanted to make amends. He answered on the first ring, his voice rough. "Amara, you okay?" "I found something," she said, her voice trembling. "Mom wrote about helping a boy escape. Was it the kidnapping Caleb was in? Malcolm was quiet for a long moment. Yeah, he said finally. Your mom was there, working at a clinic near where it happened. She never gave details, said it was too dangerous. But if it's true, Amara, you need to be careful. There's more to this than you know. Amara hung up, her mind spinning. Vanessa's bracelet, her claim of saving Caleb, the attack, it was all connected. And her mom was part of it. She looked at the notebook, her mom's words a lifeline across time. Whatever was coming, she wasn't backing down. But as she thought of Caleb, bleeding for her, she knew one thing for sure. She couldn't lose him. Not now, not ever. The penthouse was quiet, save for the soft hum of the city beyond the windows. Amara Brooks sat on the edge of the guest bed, her hands clasped tightly, staring at the bandage on Caleb Ward's shoulder. It had been 3 days since the attack in the parking garage, 3 days since she'd watched him bleed for her, his blood staining her hands. The image was burned into her mind, along with the text that followed. Back off, or next time he won't walk away. Her stomach churned every time she thought of it. But what scared her more was the feeling in her chest when she looked at Caleb now. Love. Messy, terrifying, undeniable love. He was in the living room, sprawled on the couch, his arm in a sling, but his eyes sharp as ever. The doctors had ordered rest, but Caleb wasn't the type to sit still. He'd been on the phone all morning, calling in favors to track down the attackers. Amara had overheard him talking to his security team, his voice low and fierce. Find them. I don't care what it takes. It should have reassured her, but it didn't. The danger was still out there, and the notebook she'd found at Loretta's, her mom's cryptic note about helping a boy escape, kept her up at night. Was it Caleb? And if it was, what did Vanessa Cole's bracelet have to do with it? She stood, smoothing her hoodie, and walked into the living room. Caleb looked up, his face softening. Hey, he said, setting his phone down. You okay? No, she admitted, crossing her arms. I'm freaking out, Caleb. Someone tried to kill me and you're acting like it's just another Tuesday. Plus that text. And my mom's notebook. I need answers. He stood, wincing as his shoulder protested, and stepped closer. I'm trying, Amara. My team's digging, and I've got people watching Loretta's place. As for your mom, he hesitated, his eyes searching hers. If she was part of what happened to me as a kid, I want to know too, but we'll figure it out together, okay? His hand brushed her arm, warm and steady, and for a moment, she wanted to lean into him, to let his strength anchor her. But the memory of Vanessa's visit, her smug claim of saving Caleb, stopped her. What about Vanessa? She asked, her voice sharp. She's got that bracelet, acting like she owns you. You gonna tell me the whole story or keep dodging? Caleb's jaw tightened, but he nodded. Fair. When I was 10, I got grabbed, snatched from a park during a school trip. 2 guys, some kind of ransom play. I was blindfolded, stuck in a shed for hours. Someone slipped a note to the cops, and they found me. Vanessa was there, a kid from another school group. She said she got me out, and I believed her. My family did too. That bracelet, it was mine, lost in the chaos. She kept it, said it was proof. Amara's mind raced, her mom's notebook flashing in her memory. Helped him escape, never told anyone. And now? She pressed. You still think she's the hero? Caleb looked away, his voice low. I don't know. She's been part of my life for years. Family friend, my mom's favorite. But since you showed me that notebook, I'm questioning everything. His uncertainty should have comforted her, but it didn't. Vanessa's presence was a shadow, and the attack had shaken Amara's trust. She stepped back, her voice cold. I need more than, I don't know, Caleb. I'm not here to play second fiddle to your past. You're not, he said, his eyes fierce. You're everything, Amara. I'd take 100 knives for you. Her heart twisted, but she couldn't let it go. Then prove it. No more secrets. He nodded, but the tension hung heavy between them. Amara turned away, grabbing her bag. I'm going to work, she said. We'll talk later. Brooks' biotech was a pressure cooker. Amara's desk was a mess of notes and energy drink cans. Her focus split between her diabetes drug project and the fear gnawing at her. The whispers from her colleagues hadn't stopped, snide comments about her connection to Caleb, as if her late nights in the lab meant nothing. Today, though, the stakes were higher. The company was hosting a major R&D conference, and Amara's team was presenting their drug to investors. It was her chance to prove she belonged, not just as an intern, but as a scientist. She stood in the conference room, her slides projected on a massive screen, her voice steady as she explained the compound's potential. Our data shows a 30% improvement in insulin sensitivity, she said, clicking to a graph. This could be a game changer for underserved communities where diabetes hits hardest. The room was packed, suits, scientists, and a few reporters scribbling notes. She caught a glimpse of Caleb in the back, his sling hidden under a blazer, his presence both comforting and distracting. Then the doors swung open, and Sylvia Kane strode in, her heels clicking like gunfire. Sylvia Kane's daughter, a chemist with a chip on her shoulder, had been gunning for Amara's project since day one. She was all sharp angles and sharper smiles, her blonde hair pulled tight. Sorry to interrupt, Lauren said, her voice dripping with fake apology. But I have something you all need to see. She held up a USB drive, her eyes locking on Amara's. This data? It's stolen. Amara plagiarized it from my lab. I've got proof. The room erupted in murmurs. Amara's heart dropped, her hands clenching at her sides. That's a lie, she said, her voice shaking but firm. I've been working on this for months. Lauren waved the drive like a weapon. Check it yourself. She's a fraud. The lead scientist, Dr. Patel, stood, his face grim. Ms. Brooks, step aside. We'll review this immediately. Amara's chest tightened, years of work crumbling in seconds. She looked at Caleb, his jaw clenched, his eyes burning with anger. He started forward, but she shook her head, silently begging him to stay back. She wouldn't let him fight this for her. I'll prove it's mine, she said, her voice cutting through the chaos. Run the audit. I'm not scared. But as she left the stage, Lauren's smirk followed her, and the whispers grew louder. Back at her desk, Amara's phone buzzed. A new text from the unknown number. Told you to back off. Keep pushing, and Loretta's next. Her blood ran cold. This wasn't just about her job. Someone wanted her gone, and they were playing dirty. That night, Amara returned to the penthouse, her nerves frayed. Caleb was waiting, his sling off but his shoulder stiff. I heard what happened, he said, his voice low. Lauren's full of it. I'm getting my team to dig into her files. Don't, Amara snapped, dropping her bag. I'll handle it. I don't need you swooping in like some knight in shining armor. He flinched, but his eyes didn't waver. I'm not trying to control you, Amara. I hate seeing you hurt. Then stop making it worse, she said, her voice breaking. Everyone thinks I'm here because of you. Now Lauren's got proof I'm a thief. It's too much, Caleb. He stepped closer, his hand hovering near her arm. You're not alone in this. Let me help. She wanted to push him away, but his warmth, his steady presence, was too much. She sank onto the couch, her head in her hands. I'm scared, she admitted, her voice barely a whisper. Not just about work. That text. They mentioned Loretta. Caleb's face darkened. He sat beside her, his hand resting on her knee. Nobody's touching Loretta. I've got security on her 24/7, and I'm not letting anything happen to you. His touch sent a shiver through her, and she looked up, their faces inches apart. The air crackled, the weight of the day melting into something else. "Why do you care so much?" she asked, her voice soft. "Because I love you," he said, the words raw, unguarded. "I've loved you since you walked into that jazz club, talking about cats and death metal. I'm all in, Amara, if you'll have me." Her breath caught, her heart pounding. She wanted to say it back, to let herself fall, but fear held her back. Instead, she leaned in, her lips brushing his, tentative at first, then desperate. The kiss was a lifeline, fierce and hungry, his hands sliding to her waist, pulling her closer. She straddled his lap, careful of his shoulder, her fingers tangling in his hair. The world faded. The threats, the confronts, the lies, until it was just them, their breaths mingling, their bodies pressed tight. They broke apart, gasping, her forehead against his. "We can't keep doing this," she whispered, her voice shaky. "Not until I know you're all in too." "I am," he said, his eyes burning. "But I'll wait, Amara. As long as it takes." She nodded, climbing off him, her body still humming. They sat in silence, the moment fragile but real. That night, they slept in the same bed for the first time, not touching but close enough to feel each other's warmth. It wasn't passion, not yet, but it was trust, and that was enough. The next day, Amara was at Loretta's, digging through her mom's old things. The notebook had been a shock, but she needed more. She found a photo tucked inside, a young Grace, smiling beside a boy with hazel eyes. Caleb, maybe, before the kidnapping. Her heart raced. If her mom had helped him, why hadn't she told anyone? And why was Vanessa so sure she was the hero? Her phone rang, Malcolm's name flashing. She answered, her voice tight. "What do you want?" "Amara, listen," he said, his tone urgent. "I've been looking into Sylvia Kane. She was around when your mom died. I think she had something to do with it, maybe more than we know. And if Grace was tied to that kidnapping, Sylvia might have wanted her quiet." Amara's grip tightened on the phone. "You're saying Sylvia killed my mom?" "I'm saying it's possible," Malcolm said. "I'm digging deeper, but you need to watch your back. She's ruthless." Amara hung up, her mind spinning. Sylvia Kane, Lauren's mother, wanted Brooks Biotech, and now Lauren was sabotaging her. The attack, the texts, the plagiarism claim, it all pointed to Sylvia. But the notebook, the photo, Vanessa's bracelet, they were pieces of a puzzle she couldn't solve. Not yet. She returned to the penthouse, finding Caleb on the phone, his voice sharp. "I don't care how much it costs. Get me everything on Sylvia Kane." He hung up, turning to her, his face grim. "My team found something. Lauren's lab records are fishy. Timestamps don't match. We can prove you didn't steal anything." Amara nodded, but her focus was elsewhere. She held up the photo. "This was in my mom's stuff. Is this you?" Caleb took it, his eyes widening. "Yeah, that's me. I don't remember this, but your mom was there?" "I think she saved you," Amara said, her voice trembling. "Not Vanessa. And if Sylvia's involved, she might know." Caleb's hand clenched around the photo, his voice low. "Then we're taking her down. Together." Amara met his gaze, her resolve hardening. Sylvia, Lauren, Vanessa, they were coming for her, but she wasn't alone. Caleb was with her, bleeding and all, but as she looked at him, the bracelet's shadow loomed, and a new fear gripped her. What if the truth broke them apart? The air in the penthouse was thick with tension, like the calm before a Chicago thunderstorm. Amara Brooks sat at the kitchen counter, her mom's notebook open in front of her, the faded photo of a young Caleb Ward tucked between the pages. Her heart hadn't stopped racing since she'd shown it to him yesterday, his hazel eyes widening with recognition. Grace, her mom, had been there during his kidnapping, maybe even saved him. But Vanessa Cole's bracelet, her smug claim of heroism, muddied the truth, and Sylvia Kane's shadow loomed larger than ever, her threats tightening around Amara like a noose. Caleb paced nearby, his shoulders still stiff from the garage attack, but his energy relentless. He'd been on the phone all morning, his voice clipped as he pressed his security team for leads on Sylvia and her daughter Lauren. "I want every transaction, every call log," he'd said, his jaw tight. "She's not untouchable." Amara admired his fire, but it scared her too. They were poking a hornet's nest, and the text threatening Loretta still burned in her mind. Keep pushing, and Loretta's next. She closed the notebook, her fingers tracing the worn cover. "Caleb," she said, her voice steady despite the knot in her chest. "We need to talk about Vanessa. If my mom was the one who got you out, why she got your bracelet? And why she's so hell-bent on keeping you?" Caleb stopped pacing, his eyes meeting hers. "I've been asking myself the same thing. Vanessa's story never added up completely, but I was a kid, traumatized, blindfolded. I took her word for it. My mom did too. But that photo..." He ran a hand through his hair, his voice low. "If Grace was there, we need to find out what really happened." Amara nodded, but doubt gnawed at her. "And Sylvia? My dad thinks she's tied to my mom's death. If she knew Grace helped you, maybe she wanted her gone to cover it up." Caleb's face darkened. "Then we're closer than we thought. Sylvia's desperate, and desperate people make mistakes. We'll get her." His confidence should have reassured her, but it didn't. Amara stood, grabbing her jacket. "I'm meeting Nia at the Blue Note. She's got a friend who might know something about Sylvia's past. You coming?" Caleb hesitated, then shook his head. "I've got a lead on Lauren's fake data. I'll catch up later, but Amara..." He stepped closer, his hand brushing her arm. "Be careful. Take my driver." She rolled her eyes, but a smile tugged at her lips. "I'm a Bronzeville girl, Ward. I can handle myself." He grinned, but his eyes were serious. "I know. Doesn't mean I don't worry." The moment lingered, their breaths close enough to share. Amara's skin tingled where his hand rested, and for a second, she wanted to pull him in, to lose herself in the warmth of his lips like she had the other night. But the notebook, the threats, the truth, they were louder than her heart. She stepped back, nodding. "See you later." The Blue Note was alive with the wail of a trumpet and the clink of glasses. Amara sat at a corner table, the dim lights casting shadows on her face. Nia slid into the seat across from her, her braids swinging as she leaned in. "Girl, you look like you're carrying the weight of the world," Nia said, pushing a plate of fried okra toward her. "Eat, you need it." Amara managed to smile, popping a piece into her mouth. The crunch was comfort, a taste of home. "Thanks, Nia. So, where's this friend of yours?" "On her way," Nia said, her eyes scanning the room. "She's a paralegal, worked for a firm that handled Sylvia Kane's contracts back in the day. Says she's got dirt." Amara's pulse quickened. "What kind?" "Patience, sis," Nia teased, but her voice turned serious. "You sure you want to dig this deep? Sylvia's not some small-time player, and after that garage thing..." "I have to," Amara said, her voice firm. "For my mom, for Loretta, for me." Nia nodded, but before she could reply, a woman approached, mid-30s, with a no-nonsense vibe and a stack of folders under her arm. "I'm Keisha," she said, sitting down. "Nia said you're looking into Sylvia Kane." Amara leaned forward. Yeah. Anything you've got, I need to hear. Keisha opened a folder, her voice low. Sylvia was tight with some shady folks back in the 90s, including a guy named Greg Thompson. He was her fixer, handled dirty work like payoffs and accidents. Word is, he was involved in a hit that looked like a car crash. Sound familiar? Amara's blood ran cold. Her mom's death, ruled an accident, had always felt wrong. You're saying Sylvia had my mom killed? Keisha's eyes softened. I'm saying it's possible. Greg died a year later. Same kind of crash. Sylvia's good at covering tracks, but I found this. She slid a photocopy across the table. A police report from Caleb's kidnapping, mentioning a woman who'd tipped off the cops anonymously. No name, but the description matched Grace. Black woman, late 20s, seen near the scene. Amara's hands trembled as she read it. This is her. My mom. Keisha nodded. If Sylvia knew Grace was involved, she had reason to want her quiet. You're stirring up old ghosts, Amara. Watch your back. Amara left the blue note, her mind spinning. The rain had stopped, leaving the streets slick and reflective. She texted Caleb, her fingers shaky. Found something. Meet me at Loretta's. But as she crossed an alley near the L train, a van screeched to a stop beside her. Before she could react, two men in hoods grabbed her, one clamping a cloth over her mouth. She fought, clawing at their arms, but the world blurred, her limbs heavy. Darkness swallowed her. When she woke, she was in a damp warehouse on Chicago's outskirts, her hands tied behind her back. The air smelled of rust and gasoline, and a single bulb swung overhead, casting jagged shadows. Sylvia Kane stood before her, her designer coat out of place in the grime. You should have listened, Sylvia said, her voice cold as steel. I told you to back off. Amara glared, struggling against the ropes. You killed my mom, she spat. You think I'm gonna let that slide? Sylvia laughed, stepping closer. Your mom was collateral damage. Brooks Biotech was mine by right. Grace got in the way, and now you're doing the same. You won't get away with this, Amara said, her voice steady despite the fear clawing her chest. My dad knows. Caleb knows. Sylvia's smile widened. Caleb Ward? He's a liability, darling, and your dad's a washed-up fool. This ends tonight. Amara's heart pounded, but she kept her eyes locked on Sylvia's. You underestimated me. Big mistake. Sylvia turned away, barking orders at her thugs. Make it quick. No traces. But she'd underestimated Caleb, too. He'd been tracking Amara's phone since the garage attack, a precaution he'd insisted on. Within hours, he burst into the warehouse, his face a mask of fury. Let her go, he roared, charging at the first thug. Fists flew, the dim light catching the glint of his bloodied knuckles. He took down one man, but the second pulled a knife, slashing at his side. Amara screamed as Caleb stumbled, blood staining his shirt, but he gritted his teeth, tackling the thug to the ground, knocking him out cold. Sylvia fled, her heels echoing as she vanished into the night. Caleb staggered to Amara, cutting her ropes with a pocket knife, his hands shaking. You're hurt, Amara gasped, pressing her hands to his wound, the warmth of his blood seeping through her fingers. I'm fine, he said, his voice strained. Just get out of here. No way, she said, tears welling. Not without you. They limped out together, collapsing into his car as he called for help. At the hospital, doctors stitched Caleb up, warning he'd need weeks to recover. Amara stayed by his bedside, holding his hand as he slept, her heart aching. She'd almost lost him, and the truth about her mom's death was closer than ever. Sylvia was still out there, but Amara wasn't running. Not anymore. The next day, Amara met Nia at a diner in Bronzeville, the smell of bacon and coffee grounding her. She'd barely slept, her mind replaying the warehouse, Caleb's blood, Sylvia's cold smile. Nia slid a cup of tea across the table, her eyes worried. "You look like hell, girl. What happened?" Amara told her everything. Keisha's files, the warehouse, Sylvia's confession. Nia's jaw dropped. "She admitted to killing your mom? We gotta take her down." "I know," Amara said, her voice firm. "But I need proof. And I need to know the truth about Caleb's kidnapping. Vanessa's lying, I can feel it." Nia leaned in. "Then let's get her. I'll call Keisha, see if she can dig up more on the kidnapping. You talk to Vanessa. Get her to crack." Amara nodded, her resolve hardening. That afternoon, she tracked Vanessa down at a sleek coffee shop in the Loop. Vanessa sat at a corner table, her auburn hair perfect, her smile smug. "Amara," she said, her voice dripping with fake warmth. "To what do I owe the pleasure?" "Cut the crap," Amara said, sliding into the seat across from her. "I know you're lying about the kidnapping. My mom was there, not you. The bracelet? You stole it." Vanessa's smile faltered, her eyes narrowing. "You don't know what you're talking about." "I've got a police report," Amara lied, leaning forward. "It says a black woman tipped off the cops. That was Grace, not you. So why don't you tell me the truth before I take this to Caleb?" Vanessa's composure cracked, her hands trembling. "Fine," she spat, her voice low. "I didn't save him. I saw it happen. Saw your mom slip the note under the door. I was scared, okay? I ran. Later I found the bracelet in the dirt and kept it. When Caleb's family assumed I was the hero, I let them. It got me in with the wards. You gonna ruin that over a dead woman's story?" Amara's blood boiled, but she kept her voice steady. "You built your life on a lie. Caleb deserves the truth. And so do I." Vanessa stood, her chair scraping. "Tell him. He'll never believe you over me." She stormed out, but Amara saw the fear in her eyes. Vanessa was unraveling, and Amara had her on the ropes. That night, Amara returned to the penthouse, her heart heavy but determined. Caleb was up, his bandage fresh, his eyes bright despite the pain. "You okay?" he asked, pulling her into a careful hug. She nodded, her cheek against his chest, his heartbeat steadying her. "I confronted Vanessa. She admitted it, Caleb. She didn't save you. My mom did. She slipped a note to the cops, risked everything. Vanessa just took the credit." Caleb pulled back, his face a mix of shock and relief. "Your mom, Grace." He sank onto the couch, his voice breaking. "All this time, I thought it was Vanessa. I owe your mom everything." Amara sat beside him, her hand finding his. "You don't owe anyone. But we owe her justice. Sylvia's behind this. My mom's death, the attacks, all of it. We're gonna end her." Caleb's eyes met hers, fierce and unwavering. "Together," he said, his hand tightening around hers. "Always." They sat there, the city lights painting them in gold, their past snapping into place. Amara's mind flashed to the warehouse, to Caleb choosing her over Vanessa in the fire. He'd risked his life for her, just as her mom had risked hers for him. The truth was a weight, but it was also a bridge, tying them closer than ever. Sylvia was still out there, her empire built on blood, but Amara and Caleb were ready. The fight was far from over, but for the first time Amara felt like they could win. The morning sun spilled through the windows of Loretta's Bronzeville apartment, casting a warm glow over the kitchen table. Amara Brooks sat across from her dad, Malcolm, a stack of files between them. The air smelled of coffee and cornbread, Loretta's specialty, but Amara's focus was on the papers, bank records, call logs, and a grainy audio file that could bring Sylvia Kane down. It had been a week since the warehouse fire, since Caleb had chosen her over Vanessa, since the truth about her mom's role in his childhood rescue had snapped their past into place. Now they were closing in on Sylvia, the woman who'd taken Grace's life and nearly destroyed theirs. Malcolm's eyes, lined with years of regret, met hers. "This is it, Amara," he said, his voice rough. "Sylvia's payments to Greg Thompson, her fixer, match the dates of your mom's crash and his. And this recording—" He tapped a USB drive. Greg, threatening to expose her unless she paid more. Hours later, he was dead. Amara's hands clenched, anger surging. "She killed my mom to steal Brooks Biotech, covered it with poison and lies." She thought of Grace, her laughter, her strength, reduced to a staged accident. "We've got her, Dad. She's done." Malcolm nodded, a flicker of pride in his eyes. "You're just like your mom, stubborn, brilliant. I'm sorry I wasn't there, Amara. I want to make it right." She swallowed hard, the old pain still sharp. "You're here now. That's a start." Loretta shuffled in, her apron dusted with flour. "Y'all better eat before you go fighting dragons," she said, setting a plate of cornbread on the table. "Sylvia Kane ain't worth skipping breakfast." Amara smiled, the warmth of home grounding her. She took a bite, the buttery sweetness a reminder of what she was fighting for: family, justice, a future. Caleb was waiting at the penthouse, his team ready to hand their evidence to the police. Sylvia's empire was crumbling, and Amara was ready to see it fall. The raid happened at dusk, Chicago's skyline glowing red as police swarmed Sylvia Kane's penthouse in the Loop. Amara and Caleb watched from a parked car across the street, their hands clasped tightly. The evidence, bank records, the audio, Keisha's police report, had been enough for a warrant. Sylvia's screams echoed as officers cuffed her, her designer dress rumpled, her face twisted with rage. "You can't prove anything," she spat, but the file said otherwise. 2 murders, fraud, a lifetime of deceit. Lauren Kane stood nearby, her face pale, tears streaming as her mother was dragged away. Amara caught her eye, expecting venom, but Lauren's shoulders slumped. "I didn't know," she whispered, her voice breaking. "She said it was for us." Amara's heart softened, just a fraction. Lauren had been Sylvia's pawn, her accusation of plagiarism a desperate bid for approval. "Tell the truth," Amara said, her voice firm but not cruel. "Help us end this." Lauren nodded, turning to an officer, her words spilling out. She'd found files in Sylvia's office, proof of the fake data, proof Amara's work was her own. It was enough to clear Amara's name at Brooks Biotech, but more than that, it was a crack in Sylvia's armor. At the station, a DNA test Malcolm had insisted on dropped the final bomb. Lauren wasn't his daughter. She was Greg Thompson's, a secret Sylvia had buried to secure her grip on the company. Lauren collapsed, sobbing, as Sylvia's lies unraveled. Amara faced Sylvia one last time through the glass of an interrogation room. "You took my mom," she said, her voice steady, her brown eyes blazing. "You thought you'd take me too, but you lost everything." Sylvia smirked, unrepentant. "You'll never be enough for that company, girl. You're nothing." Amara turned away, her head high. Sylvia's words were empty, a dying echo. She walked out, Caleb waiting, his arm around her as they left the station. The Chicago night was cool, the city alive with possibility. "You did it," he said, his voice warm. "Grace would be proud." Amara leaned into him, her heart full. "We did it. Together." With Sylvia gone, Amara took the helm of Brooks Biotech. In a quiet ceremony, Malcolm handed her the keys to the company, his eyes wet. "Your mom built this for you," he said, his voice thick. "She'd love seeing you here." Amara hugged him, the weight of years lifting. It wasn't forgiveness, not fully, but it was a step toward healing. Caleb stood by her side, his support unwavering as they merged Brooks Biotech with Ward Biotech, creating a powerhouse dedicated to affordable medicine. Amara's diabetes drug, once nearly stolen by Lauren, was fast-tracked for trials, a beacon of hope for communities like Bronzeville. But the real victory came weeks later, in a sunlit jazz club in Bronzeville. The Blue Note was packed, the air thick with the smell of fried chicken and the wail of a saxophone. Amara walked down a makeshift aisle, her white dress simple but radiant, her curls loose and glowing. Caleb waited at the front, his black suit sharp, his smile brighter than the Chicago skyline. Loretta sat in the front row, her hands clasped, her face glowing with pride. Malcolm was beside her, reconciled with his past, a family reborn. Eleanor Ward, Caleb's mom, beamed from the other side, her health restored thanks to a new antidepressant Amara had helped develop, a gift from daughter-in-law to mother-in-law. The preacher, a friend of Loretta's, called for the vows. Do you, Caleb, take Amara, in sickness and health, for richer or poorer? Caleb's voice rang clear, his eyes locked on hers. I do, Amara echoed, her voice steady, her heart full. I do. Their kiss was electric, sealing a love forged through fire and betrayal. The crowd erupted, clapping and hollering, as Nia led a toast with bourbon shots. To Amara and Caleb, she said, grinning, the baddest team in Chicago. The reception spilled onto the club's terrace, under a sky studded with stars. Tables groaned with soul food, mac and cheese, collard greens, peach cobbler, while a blues band played, the music weaving through laughter and clinking glasses. Amara and Caleb slipped away to a quiet corner, her hand in his, their rings glinting. We made it, she said, her voice soft, her eyes tracing his face. He pulled her close, his lips brushing her temple. Couldn't have done it without you, Brooks, she laughed, nudging him. Ward, you mean? I'm stuck with you now. Damn right, he said, his grin wicked. They danced, slow and easy, no music needed, just the rhythm of their hearts. A month later, Amara and Caleb stood on a Miami beach, the sunset painting the sky in hues of gold and pink. Their honeymoon was a stolen moment, a chance to breathe after the chaos. The waves lapped at their feet, cool and soothing, as Amara dropped her wide-brimmed hat in the sand. A stranger, a guy with a surfer vibe, picked it up, flashing a grin. Lost something beautiful, he said, offering his number with a wink. Amara smiled, shaking her head. Thanks, but I just got married. She glanced at Caleb, who was pretending to scowl, his arms crossed. The guy shrugged, walking off, and Caleb pulled her close, his voice teasing. He's lucky I didn't deck him. Jealous much? Amara laughed, pushing him playfully. Always, he said, catching her hand, kissing her knuckles. You're mine, Amara Ward. She leaned into him, her bare feet sinking into the sand, the sunset wrapping them in warmth. And you're mine, Caleb, forever. That night, under a canopy of stars, they danced again, her head against his chest, his heartbeat a steady drum. Amara thought of their journey, from a napkin contract in a jazz club to a love that had survived fire, lies, and loss. She'd been a girl scarred by her dad's greed, wary of wealth, but Caleb had shown her love wasn't about money. It was about sacrifice, about choosing each other when the world burned. Her mom's legacy lived in Brooks Biotech, in the drugs that would save lives. In the Qui from Thien Mang Ten Grace they'd started for black kids chasing science dreams. And Caleb, once a boy lost in a shed, was her home, her fire, her always. Their story wasn't perfect. It was messy, forged in chaos, tempered by pain. but it was real. Amara looked up at Caleb, his eyes reflecting the moon, and knew they'd face whatever came next, together. The waves whispered their vows, and the night stretched endless before them, a canvas for a love that would never fade. So, did you tear up when Amara and Caleb said "I do" in that Bronzeville jazz club? Or was it their dance under the Miami stars that got you? Drop a comment below and tell me your favorite moment. Maybe it's Caleb's grin when Amara shut down that beach flirt, or Loretta's cornbread stealing the show. If this love story warmed your heart, hit that subscribe button to catch more tales that prove love can conquer anything. Amara and Caleb found their forever, and who knows, maybe the next story will spark something in you. Thanks for sticking with us, and I'll see you in the next one.